In literally every racing game you've ever played, if you steer left, you go left. However, in this video, I'm going to try and see if it's actually possible to play the F1 game with inverted controls. And I'm going to be doing this by driving 100 laps around the Austrian Grand Prix circuit in time trial mode. This is definitely going to be confusing. So for my first lap, I honestly don't think I've ever been so cautious, and I was just making sure I don't crash out. Although I'm learning to play with no traction control, for this challenge, my accelerate finger was my braking finger, and I just had to turn back to medium traction control. So apart from completing the 100 laps, my goal for this video was to get within 1 second of my personal best that I got in my previous video, which put me into the top 8% in the world. This is definitely going to be difficult, but luckily for me, my progress in the next 100 laps is unbelievable. Unsurprisingly, my exit out of turn 3 was dreadful, as I was still learning what button to press for going up and down gears. Now we're coming up to turn 4, and to be fair, for a first lap it wasn't actually that bad. I turned in at the right time and changed gears properly, however I had a pretty awkward exit. Unluckily for me, this would somehow be one of the best exits of this lap, and this should tell you all you need to know about how the rest of this lap is going to go. Coming through turn 6 here, I was a mile away from the apex, which definitely cost me well over a second, and now coming up to turn 7, I just turned in the wrong way. And then on the exit at turn 7, I just did the exact same thing. I ran along the gravel for a good few seconds, which eventually led to my first lap being invalidated. Yeah, this wasn't exactly the start I was hoping for. We'll quickly go through the rest of this first lap, and as you can tell, it was a complete disaster. I honestly just could not keep the car on track. Anyway, I finished my first lap with a 1 minute 16.396, and this was just over 11 seconds away from my goal, which was to be within 1 second of my personal best. And although this was pretty rubbish, I still had another 99 laps to improve, and that's exactly what I did on the first corner of the second lap. My exit out of the first corner was definitely far from perfect, but I still managed to gain almost 0.6 of a second. Next I was turn 3, and I couldn't override muscle memory, and I turned in the wrong way, which looks pretty embarrassing and cost me well over a second. But I wouldn't be showing you this lap if I didn't improve, and trust me, I gained a lot of time. However, that would be towards the end of the lap, as through turn 4 I didn't know when to stop turning in, and I was almost 2 seconds down. Luckily for me though, I gained most of the time back by not invalidating through turn 7 and 8, so now I was almost equal to my delta. Coming up to the final 2 corners, I decided that I was going to be super cautious, and this was because if I could keep the car on track, I could gain well over a second. And that's exactly what happened. I managed to gain by 1.5 seconds, and I was now under 10 seconds away from my goal with 98 laps remaining. You're probably not surprised to hear that it's almost impossible to achieve any form of consistency with inverted controls, and it took me 10 laps to get to my next improvement. I knew that all the time to find was in turn 3, and this time I actually turned into the corner and gained 1.2 seconds, which was massive. Next I was turn 4, and if I could get this corner right, I'd gain even more time. I turned in a little bit later this time, and even though I had a pretty big wobble on the exit, I gained another second, and I knew this could be a really important lap. This is where it all started to go wrong. Coming up to the final 2 corners, I'd maintained my improvement, but through turn 9, I missed the apex, which cost me over 0.3. And then on the exit of the final corner, I was paranoid about losing all of the time I'd gained and backed off quite a lot. Then I accidentally changed down a gear instead of going up one, which cost me even more time. However, I did finish the lap with a 1.6 seconds improvement, and I was just over 8 seconds away from my goal with loads of time to find. And I found this time a quarter of the way through the challenge. Coming into the final section, I was 1.3 seconds down, but I gained over 2 seconds through turn 9 and another 0.4 through the final corner, even with a load of hesitation holding me back. In the end, I finished the lap with another 1.6 second improvement, and now I was just under 7 seconds away from my goal with 3/4 of the challenge left to go. Moving on to lap 35, and this was the lap where I realised that I could genuinely get within 1 second of my previous personal best. Coming through turn 1 here, I had a massive wobble, and this was probably my worst ever exit I had in the entire challenge, and I lost well over 2 seconds. We'll skip through the rest of this lap, but as you can see, I was slowly gaining back time because of my first corner mistake. I realised that if I put together a clean lap, I could gain so much time, and this lap was definitely nowhere near perfect. I was 2 tenths down coming into the final 2 corners, and I brought this back to equal after turn 9. Even though I missed the apex for the final corner, I still somehow managed to gain just over 0.3 of a second with 15 laps left in this stint. And then 9 laps later, I showed how much time there was to gain in turn 1, and it's pretty ridiculous. I had a pretty decent exit with no wobbles or anything, and by the end of the straight, I'd gained almost 3.3 seconds. And by the end of the lap, I'd lost about 1.2 seconds of this progress. However, if I could maintain a 2-second improvement, that would be huge. I could have gained so much time through the final corner, but I had a wobble, and by the way, that was a great save, you can't tell me otherwise. I gained by just under 1.9 seconds and was now 4.7 seconds away from my goal. So that was all the progress I made for the first 50 laps, and at this point I knew that if I could just build a little bit of consistency in the next stint, I had a serious chance of getting within 1 second of my previous personal best. By the way, I did actually forget to record my next improvement, which was pretty substantial earlier on in the stint, and now I was 3.5 seconds away from my goal with under 50 laps remaining. After this improvement, I made my next bit of progress on lap 15, and as you just saw, leaving turn 7 and 8, I just gained so much time. I had a super clean run through the penultimate corner, which gained me almost 0.4 of a second, and although I missed the apex by a little bit through the final corner, I still gained another 1.5 tenths. I was now just under 3 seconds away from the overall goal with 34 laps left in this challenge. Annoyingly though, after this I really struggled in making progress, and for a good few laps I could not stop spinning and probably even more annoyingly turning the wrong way. Which, as you can imagine, is extremely frustrating. But I knew there was loads of time to find, so if I could just stop overthinking, I'd start making loads of improvements. So after about 7 laps of spinning, I was finally about to put together a good lap. My current personal best was not even that good of a lap, and coming up to turn 2, I knew I could find so much time because of what happened last time around. Yeah, this challenge was pretty confusing. Anyway, this time around I took turn 3 correctly and I straight away gained over a second. I pretty much maintained this gain through the rest of the lap, and once again coming up to the final corners I knew that I could make some serious progress. So I lost a little bit of time through turn 9, and then I did the same thing in the final corner and I lost another tenth. In the end I only gained 7.4 tenths, however I was now under 2.5 seconds away from my goal. And after this, things really started to pick up. Coming into turn 4 here, I managed to get on the power really early and gained 3.5 tenths, which was massive considering I only needed under 2.5 seconds. For me, the next 2 corners were the hardest on the track as they were the only 2 left-handers, and this time I managed to find loads of time by keeping it clean and not having any wobbles for the first time in literally 75 laps. Leaving turn 8 I was a second up, and after going through the rest of the final sector I only lost a tenth and a half. And to be honest, I was pretty pleased with this as I had just moved within 1.5 seconds of my goal with 25 laps left to go. As I said before, things were really starting to pick up, and just 2 laps later I made even more progress. Coming into the final 2 corners I was equal to my delta with time to find, specifically in turn 8. I found this time and instantly gained just over 3 tenths, and then through the final corner I probably had my best run of the entire 100 laps. I gained a massive 6 tenths, and for the first time I was a second within my goal, which was to be a second within my previous personal best. Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a mouthful. And then 5 laps later I was once again on a good lap. Through turn 1 I had my best exit of the entire challenge, and by the end of the second straight I had already gained 2.5 tenths. Coming into turn 3 I lined myself up really well, and on the exit I managed to get the power down so early, which gave me another 3 tenths, and at this point I thought I was about to complete the challenge. And through the rest of the lap I maintained this gain. Coming through turn 9 I lost about half a tenth, which is nothing, but through the final corner I didn't have as good of an exit as before and lost another half a tenth. In the end I moved within 3 tenths of the lap I needed, and I knew this would have to be a pretty insane lap if I was going to complete the challenge.
Love comes wearing disguises. How to go about shoes. Break it down by shapes and sizes. I'm a man who's got very specific taste. Just my type. Oh, you got a pulse and you are real. Just my type. Oh, I think it's time to live. Just my type. This is it. This is the lap of the weekend. Don't fight, just keep breathing. I can't help myself but stare. Double check for double meanings. I'm a man who's got very specific taste.
That was so close. On lap 88 I completed the inverted rules challenge by 6 thousandths of a second, and honestly that lap could not have been much better. As you can see, this lap put me into the top 29% in the world, and just for proof I was using inverted controls. And this was my final lap of the entire challenge. Sadly I didn't improve any more than that lap, but this was pretty fun, so in the future I'll definitely try and do something like this again when I get a wheel and a proper setup. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you're enjoying the content.